Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Prisoners of Peace. Chapter 3. Jake stopped by the living quarters he shared with his father. Despite the fact that Commander Benjamin Sisko was in charge of Deep Space Nine, their rooms on the station were smaller than the ones they'd shared in other places. Jake couldn't really think of them as home. They were just rooms to sleep in, to study in, and to store things in. He glanced at the computer pad and saw that his father was going to be on duty for another hour or so, which meant Jake had some free time. He glanced at the baseball and catcher's mitt on his table. Game on the holodeck? No, he didn't really feel like it right now. Maybe after dinner. At the moment, there was just one thing on his mind. Riv Jakar. He still felt sorry for the boy and wondered what he could do to make the Bajoran more at home on DS9. Home? Jake shook his head. He didn't feel like this was really home, so how could he help Riv? After all, Commander Sisko had been posted to 4 starships and 2 planetary bases that Jake could remember. It was always possible that any day now Starfleet would move him again, and Jake would have to go with his father, leaving behind all his friends on the station. Riv, on the other hand, looked as if he was stuck here whether he liked it or not. Jake made up his mind to head over to Quark's place. Nog would be there, so he'd at least have someone to talk to, and maybe he'd run into Riv as well. Whether that would be a good or bad thing, Jake couldn't say. In the center of Deep Space Nine was the promenade. It was kind of like a shopping center in space. Nog's uncle Quark owned a large part of the place. Quark's was a bar, a gambling salon, and a whole mess of holosuites. Visitors and staff could eat, drink, and play there, and they often spent a lot of money. Like all Ferengi, Quark loved making money. The place was busy, as always, when Jake arrived. He spotted Nog at about the same time that the Ferengi boy spotted him. Jake asked him, "Which one is Riv's uncle?" Nog grimaced.
"Back to that, are you? I don't know why you even think about that horrible brat."
Jake couldn't resist a grin. "That's what everyone said to me when I made friends with you."
"It's not the same thing at all,"
Nog complained. Then he pointed.
"That's him, over there. The one that looks like one of those earth creatures we studied in class. You know, a walrus."
Riv's uncle was working at one of the game tables, and Jake could see why Nog had called him a walrus. The Bajoran man was very large and tubby, and beneath his ridged Bajoran nose he had a large, prickly-looking mustache that stuck out several inches on either side. With his dark hair and small eyes, the man did look like a walrus on a beach. The scowl on his face didn't look encouraging either. "He doesn't look too friendly," Jake said.
"He isn't,"
said Nog, scowling.
"I can see why Riv has problems with him."
"That's only one reason," said Riv. Jake whirled around, unaware that the Bajoran boy had managed to sneak up behind him. "You startled me," he said. "I didn't hear you coming." "I was in the Bajoran underground," Riv reminded him. "You learn to be quiet. If you're not, you get to be dead very quickly. Satisfied yet? Or are you going to sneak about some more and pry into my private life?" Jake felt his face get hot. "I was just trying to help," he muttered. "Well, don't," snarled Riv. "I've had all the help I can take. If it weren't for interfering do-gooders, I'd still be back on Bajor. Instead, I'm stuck on this dump of a space station with a bunch of jerks in some dumb class and living with an uncle who hates me. Now do you get why I don't like it here?" Nodding, Jake said, "Yeah, I guess it would be hard for things to get much worse for you, wouldn't it?" He smiled. "So why not make things a little bit better instead? Nog and I would like you to come to the arcade with us." He gave his Ferengi friend a kick. "Wouldn't we?"
"Oh, sure," said Nog, without any enthusiasm. "I just love hanging out with antisocial parasites with attitude problems."
Talk about no help at all. He's just joking," Jake told Riv, hoping the Bajoran would believe it. "Right. I've heard a lot about the Ferengi sense of humor. He gave a nasty little smile. They say you have to cut a Ferengi into very little pieces to find it. This was obviously not working out. Look, said Jake, sighing, the offer's open. Anytime you want a friend, I'll be around. Till then, he stopped talking, realizing that Riv wasn't listening. The Bajoran's eyes had narrowed to slits, and he was hissing softly as he stared past Jake and Nog. Puzzled, Jake turned around to see what had caught Riv's attention. It was Garak, the tailor. He was the only Cardassian who had remained behind when the Army of Occupation had left Deep Space Nine. Like all Cardassians, Garak was tall and skinny. His long neck ended in a vaguely reptilian face, gray in color, and with just a hint of scales. Despite his ferocious appearance, he had deep eyes that held more than a sparkle of humor in them. Jake had met him only once, but there was something rather likable about him. There's still Cardassians on this station? Whispered Riv, his mouth twitching angrily at the edges. You didn't kill them all off? We didn't kill any of them, Jake replied. The war's over, remember? They all left, except Garak. He owns a clothing store on the promenade. It's easy for you to say the war's over, Riv said angrily. Your parents weren't murdered by the Cardassians. That one should be thrown out of the nearest airlock to breathe space. Garak's okay, replied Jake. He's not a soldier, he's a shopkeeper. All Cardassians are alike, snapped Riv. Killers. It's them or us. His eyes narrowed again. And I'm going to fix that one. Jake didn't like the sound of that threat. Riv seemed to be the sort of person who carried things through. Don't do anything stupid, he warned. Stupid is letting one of those monsters on the station, Riv growled. Then he stormed off. After a moment's silence, Nog grinned. Well, I think you've shown that Riv really is as bad as his uncle claims. Now can we do something interesting? There's got to be a way for me to make some money. If I could just figure out what. Jake wasn't really paying attention. Did Riv really mean to do something about Garak? If so, what? Should he tell his father so that Riv could be watched? Or was that what Riv wanted? If he did tell his father, then there was no chance that Riv would ever come to accept him as a friend. He sighed. Whatever he did was likely to be wrong. But in a situation like this, how could he decide what to do? The following morning, Jake, Ashley, and Tara arrived in class almost together. Did you get the replicator fixed? He asked them. Yeah, Ashley told him. But we made a real interesting discovery. Somebody fixed the machine so that it only made stew and cheesecake. But who would do a thing like that? Asked Jake, puzzled. We have not been able to discover the answer as yet, Tara replied. But Ashley has come up with a possible way to resolve the problem. Way to go, said Jake approvingly. Before he could ask more questions, Ms. O'Brien entered the class. Nog followed and slid into his seat. The two girls sat down as well. As they all switched on their computers, Riv sauntered in, hands in his pockets and looking bored. Jake was quite surprised that the Bajoran boy had bothered to come to class, but nodded to him. Riv ignored him, but sat down at the desk he'd occupied the previous day. Right, Ms. O'Brien said. Today, let's study a little history. Who can tell me who invented warp drive? Ashley's hand shot up. Zephram Cochrane, she announced. In the year 2061, she grinned. Easy. In fact, she broke off as the door hissed open. Into the room strode two adults. One of them was Garak, the Cardassian tailor, looking rather unhappy. The other was Odo. Odo was nice enough, but there was something very spooky about him. He was the station's constable in charge of law and order. He always wore a brown uniform and a very severe expression. He looked human enough in a sort of unfinished way. There weren't any lines on his face, for example, and his ears didn't look quite right. His hair looked like it was a wig, and his eyes seemed to be a bit too deeply set. The reason was simple. This was as close to human as Odo could get. He wasn't actually what he appeared to be. In his natural state, he looked like a pool of jelly, but he was able to change his shape into anything he liked just by concentrating on it. He always looked grim. Jake supposed that being the policeman on the station wasn't exactly the sort of job to bring a smile to anyone's face. Odo looked as if he'd never even learned how to smile, and that was on his good days. Right now, he was looking ferocious enough to curdle milk with one glance.
"Excuse me," he said politely but firmly to Ms. O'Brien, "but I need to have a few words with your class."
Of course. The teacher looked puzzled. Is there something wrong, Odo?
Yes.
His eyes scanned the room and the silent students.
It appears that we have a thief in here.
His eyes fastened directly on Nog.
Chapter 4. Why are you looking at me?
Demanded Nog defensively.
I've done nothing wrong. Did I say you had? Asked Odo. Perhaps you have a guilty conscience?
Before Nog could reply, Odo held up his hand.
Garak came to me this morning with a complaint, and I am investigating it. It seems that someone has stolen several items of clothing from the store.
I didn't see who did it, Garak put in, wringing his hands together uncomfortably. Just a small shape in the darkness. By the time that I put on the shop lights, whoever it was had vanished. If there was anybody, Riv said, sneering, we only have his word for it, and I'd trust a Cardassian about as far as I could spit one. Odo eyed the Bajoran boy.
Ah, yes, Riv Jakar, isn't it? I've heard a lot about you. None of it good.
And I've heard a lot about you, too, Riv replied. You worked with the Cardassians while they ran this station, didn't you? And now you're helping one of the monsters to frame us for theft.
My job is to keep the peace and enforce justice, Odo answered. It doesn't matter who is in charge of the station. I guarantee justice. And I didn't simply take Garak's word for his losses. I checked his computer logs, and the items are missing. Clothing for a girl, stolen by a small thief. Don't look at me, protested Nog. Hey, you said it was girls' clothing that was stolen. Maybe one of them did it.
He pointed vaguely across the room. Gee, thanks a lot, said Ashley sarcastically. You think I'd go stealing clothes? No way. And Vulcans do not steal, added Tara, looking slightly smug despite her supposed lack of emotions.
Nor do they lie, agreed Odo.
Then he glared down at her.
But if a Vulcan were capable of one, then she could do the other, couldn't she?
Without waiting for a reply, he turned to Marn Laren.
What about you? He asked.
What about me? She replied, scowling hard. You think I stole from the Cardassian? I wouldn't be caught dead touching his things. Odo shook his head.
Well, I didn't expect a confession from the thief. But whoever it was, I promise you that person will be caught and punished.
He looked slowly about the room again.
So be warned. If there's another incident, I shall be very annoyed.
With a curt nod to Ms. O'Brien, he marched out of the room. Garak gave a helpless shrug and followed him out. As soon as the door closed, Riv muttered, I still think he's lying. It's a Cardassian national sport. He's just trying to get us into trouble. Why would he want to do that? Asked Jake, puzzled. Because he's a Cardassian, you idiot, snapped Riv. They just love to cause trouble. Then you must be a Cardassian in disguise, Ashley said coldly, because that's all you seem to do. Riv went pale. Take that back, he snarled, or I'll break your neck. Yeah, Ashley wrinkled her nose. I'm not scared of you. That's quite enough. Ms. O'Brien broke in calmly but firmly. Ashley, there's no need to trade insults with Riv, and there's no need for you to start a fight, Riv. You have to learn to get along with other people, even Cardassians, she added. Oh, I get along with Cardassians, Riv replied, settling down. He gave a smirk. Dead ones. And I'll fix that lying tailor. You wait and see. Well, the teacher said, right now you're going to get back to your lessons, all of you. Jake's eyes returned to his computer screen, but his mind was still focused on Riv. There had been a look in the other boy's eyes that seemed to say he meant business. Jake was convinced that Riv had already come up with an idea for getting back at Garak. His hatred of the Cardassians was not wearing away. If anything, it seemed to be getting stronger, and he appeared to have chosen Garak to suffer his anger. Then there was this stealing thing. He didn't like thinking that Nog was guilty, but, well, Nog could be guilty. He'd been talking about making money all last night. Or Riv could have done it to strike back at a Cardassian. Still, why would either of them steal girls' clothes? The more he thought about it, the more certain he became that Riv wouldn't have done anything so minor. And as for Nog, he wanted to make money. If he'd stolen the clothes, who could he possibly sell them to that wouldn't know they were stolen? Didn't make much sense. And he couldn't imagine that any of the girls in the class would have done it. Ashley had the skill to bypass the alarms, but she wasn't the sort of person who'd steal anything. As for Tara, she never did anything without a very good logical reason. Marn disliked Garak too much to even approach his shop, and the other girls were really too young even to think about stealing anything from anywhere. Eventually, it was lunch break. Ms. O'Brien stared at the replicator rather nervously. "You did fix this thing, Ashley?" she asked. "Oh, yes," Ashley assured her. "Tara and I both did it." "Then it will work this time?" asked the teacher. "I doubt it," said Ashley cheerfully, "unless you're into stew and cheesecake." She crossed over to the replicator before Ms. O'Brien could ask her what she meant. "Blueberry pie and chocolate ice cream," she ordered. There was a moment's pause, and then a dish slowly materialized inside the chamber. Jake stared at it. Hot, steaming stew with a slice of cheesecake melting into it. Strangely enough, Ashley didn't seem at all upset. Instead, she wrenched off the access panel at the side of the machine. With a probe, she snapped out one of the chipboards. "Just as I thought," she said happily. She pointed to a small piece of wire wrapped across the contacts. "But you removed that wire last night," Tara said, struggling to keep her face straight. "And somebody put it back," Ashley finished. "This proves that the problems with the replicator aren't an accident." "Pretty neat," Jake said, "but it doesn't help us find out who did it." "Yes, it does," said Ashley smugly. "You see, when I was sure the unit was being sabotaged, I set up a program. Whoever rewired this chip had to have touched it. I set it to scan the culprit." She pulled a small tricorder from her belt. "I've accessed the files of everyone on the station, and all I have to do is cross-check them against the readings from this chip, and we'll know who's the stew and cheesecake maniac." "Clever," Jake admitted, impressed with her thinking. "I know I am," agreed Ashley. She plugged the chip into the tricorder and hit the button to start the check. A moment later, she frowned. "That's odd." "What's wrong?" asked Riv, smirking. "Screwed up, have you? Maybe you're not as clever as you think you are." Ignoring this taunt, Ashley stared at the screen of the tricorder in disbelief. "There's no match at all." Nog shrugged.
"Maybe the chip didn't get a sample then,"
he suggested. "No, there's definitely a sample," Ashley said. She shook her head. "But the computer can't match it against any of the files." "Maybe," said Marn. "That's because the files haven't been updated for a little while." She glared at Riv. "I'll bet he's not in them yet." Riv gave her a cold look. "Are you accusing me of fixing the machine?" he asked. "Why would I bother?" "Besides," added Jake, "the replicator wasn't working before Riv arrived on the station." "But we don't know that it was sabotaged back then," Martin continued. "It may have been a genuine error before, and we've all seen how good Riv is with computers." "How would you like to see how good I am with fists?" Riv snapped. Ms. O'Brien moved between them. "That's quite enough," she said again, firmly, again. "I want you all to cool off. Meanwhile," she added with a sigh, "it looks like we'll be bringing lunch in again." After school was over, Jake pulled Nog aside. "Riv's up to something," he said. "I just don't know what. Did you see his reaction to Garak?"
"Who cares?" asked Nog. "It's either Miss O'Brien's or Odo's problem, not ours. We should mind our own business. There's no profit in minding theirs."
"It could be something that would affect us," Jake said. "He seems to have a grudge against us all. He could get us all into trouble." Nog was uncertain.
You're just guessing,
he complained. But it's a good guess. Jake saw that he had his friend worried enough to act. Look, let's just keep our eyes open and see what he's up to, okay? Nothing more than that.
Well, okay,
agreed Nog finally. He went along with Jake to the promenade.
As long as it doesn't take too much time.
Riv's not very patient, Jake pointed out. Whatever he's planning, he's bound to do it soon. He just wished he had some idea what it might be. Okay, said Ashley when she was alone in the classroom with Tara. My last plan didn't work, she grinned. Time for plan B. And what is plan B? asked Tara. Ashley showed her the computer chip pad. I've removed the wire again, and this time I've added a small transmitter. When our culprit puts the wire back, it'll send a signal out. She snapped the chip back into the replicator and closed the cover. I've got my notepad computer set to warn me when that happens. All we have to do is to hang around until the alarm goes off. Then we jump whoever it is. Tara nodded solemnly. It is a good plan, she agreed. And when we catch the culprit, we turn him into Odo, Ashley said. But first, she gave a broad smile, I'm going to make one last batch of stew and cheesecake and rub his face in it.